Hi everyone, it's Ileana and I have a couple of cards to share with you today. I am starting off with a couple of stamps from Gerda Steiner. I have the Alien Invasion and the Blast Off stamp sets. I have a small piece of Bristol cardstock that I'm starting off with because I plan to use my Zig clean color markers, and those seem to work, this paper seems to work best with those markers. So I'm just lining up several of the images onto this small piece of paper, and I am making multiples. And first I'm going to start off with using the Ink on 3 Blackout ink. I do plan to do a little bit of masking, so I'm just taking a small piece of Post-it tape and I cut it in half. I did butt up the Post-it tape against the corner. That would be easy for me to go back and put it on the little UFO later. I do like to cut just inside the line so that I don't get a gap when I stamp with the other stamp that goes over it. Once I get the masks put into position, I'm going to put the other stamp over top, overlapping where I feel like the image needs to go. I do like to use the same corner when I do this kind of stuff, just simply because if you don't cut your paper to the exact same size, you're gonna stamp incorrectly. So I always try to keep that in mind. Same corner of the cardstock goes for each time that I stamp. I'm removing the masks, and now I'm going to add the hello to the flag, and now I'm going to be using the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, just simply because it's a wet sticky pigment, and embossing ink will stick to it. I did want to get the little alien a little bit darker, so I went back and added my mask again, and I am stamping it again. Once all the stamping is done, I am going to add some embossing powder to it and heat set that. I didn't show that in the video just simply because it was out of focus. And now I'm taking my markers and I'm just going to color them in and use the blender pen to blend everything out. I'm not going to show too much of the coloring. I got a new camera, and so I need to adjust the autofocus, and it kept going in and out of focus. It was driving me nuts, so I'm just going to show you just a little bit here so you get the gist of how these markers work. They're really easy to use, and using the Bristol paper really helps. Once all the coloring is done, I went ahead and fussy cut everything, and now I'm just using a Memento black marker to go around the edges. It will help clean up the images so that if you don't cut or trim the shapes correctly, it kind of hides any imperfections. Now for the card base, I'm just taking some Gina K luxury thick cardstock, and I'm just going to be adding this washi tape from Altenew. If you really like the galaxy backgrounds without having to do any of the work, you can just use this full sheet of washi tape to cover your card front. I just kind of position it on there, and then I smooth it down, and then I trim off any of the overhang. That one was called Galaxy, and this washi tape here is called Nebula, also from Altenew. I wanted to make sure that I got the beautiful colors onto my card base, so I'm just playing around with the location of it. And because the colors are in this huge panel, I went ahead and did 2 cards at once. So I'm just going to put it down, and then I'm going to use my bone folder to smooth out any of the wrinkles. Once again, I'm just going to use my craft knife, and I'm going to trim right around the edges of the card base. So here are the 3 different card bases that I have started, and now I'm just going to lay down my images to see what kind of orientation I want. I wasn't sure where I wanted to put that little Saturn planet, so I didn't color in until I knew where it would go on the card, and that way I can go back and I can color with the markers that little white gap that's between the rings and the planet. For the sentiment, I'm going to go back to the same stamp sets, and I'm going to pick out something just to keep to the bottom of the card. Once I have that all figured out, I'm just going to take the sentiment and I'm going to mount it on the inside of a mini MISTI. Once I get it situated, I'm not sure why I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing, but I had it perfectly lined up, and then just out of habit, I go and pull it right off, and then I have to start all over. So here we go. I had it lined up, and for some reason, I just pulled it off. So now I got to line everything back up, and I want to make sure that it's straight. So what I end up doing is I just do a test run with my small little grid sheet, and I'm just going to stamp it, and you'll be able to tell if it's straight on that. I do want to show you this cute little container. I found it on Amazon. I like to put my chamois in it. Keeps it moist, but there's also a little bit of a gap, so it keeps them from getting stinky. So I'll be sure to put that in the link in the product description below. I did prep my card panel with my anti-static tool, and I was very generous with adding the powder to it. The embossing powder will stick to the residue from the washi, so I did powder that really well, and now I'm adding some alabaster embossing ink. I don't really need to worry about any stray embossing powder, because if there's anything stray, it'll just look like it's a star in the background. So I did heat up my heat gun, and I've went ahead and set that, and now I'm waiting for it to dry to cool off a little bit, so I can go ahead and rub off the excess powder. And so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add some foam tape to the back of these. Also keep in mind, because this is a washi tape background, the foam tape will not stick to the washi. It'll just peel right off. It'll be just like it's release paper. So when you add your foam tape, be sure to add a little bit of liquid adhesive, and that will keep everything in place. So I am adding the foam to everything, and then just as I'm about to stick everything on there, I'll go ahead and just peel off the release tape, and I will just add some adhesive to that. As you all know, I have a piece of metal underneath my craft mat, and so I can use my MISTI magnets to hold those pieces in place while I work, and they won't shift. And you can get a piece of metal like that at your local hardware store. You just ask for metal flashing, and make sure that you take a magnet so that you know it's magnetic, because aluminum will not hold a magnet. I did want the UFO to look like it was, the little window to look like it was glass, and so I am adding some glossy accents to the window. You want to be careful where you put it on your desk so that you don't get anything on top of it. You also want to make sure that there are no air bubbles, or else it will look a little strange. So I like to take my craft pick and just break those up. Now I wanted to add a little bit more to my card, and so I'm trying out these April gems, and I don't like the way that those look, and so I'm just going to stick with these clear jewel ice cube from Lucy Abram, and so I'm just going to add those. I loaned my crystal katana stick to a friend of mine, and so I pulled out my backup, and this is a Stix 2. When it loses its stick, you just sharpen it like a pencil, and it will hold your gem or sequence in place until you add some adhesive to it, and then it just releases. So you can see here I did add some glossy accents to the window of the spaceship and to the face of the little astronaut, just so that it looks like glass. Now I'm going back and I'm adding some more clear color marker to those little white areas. And here are the different cards I made. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. I didn't really focus on the coloring, just on the card itself. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And I hope you have a great day.